beautiful young model and Miss Concord Michele Somers married Martin MacNeill in 1976. That marriage lasted 30 years until Martin murdered Michele in 2007. Further investigation into Martin's life uncovered a life of fraud, lies, and affairs that spanned decades. Martin died in prison in 2017. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the True Crime Squad. This is Katie Weaver, here with my sister, co host, and partner in crime, Kristi Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
It is going well. I got my hair cut. Makes me
I like
happy.
it.
Always
Very
makes
nice.
me happy. Do you ever
Good
just
thing to
go
be
way
happy
too
about.
long and then you're like, what am I doing? I haven't cut my hair in like 3 months. What is going on? And when
Oh,
you wear short hair, you cannot go 3 months. I know you go way longer than that, but
I was going to say I only cut my hair once a year, but yeah.
yeah. But for me, 3 months is like way, way too long. So
Uh huh.
I was very pleased to get that done. Other than that, I'm doing great.
Well, I will say Scott got a haircut today because I accused him of looking like the mayor of Whoville because he has like all these little like curly Q things sticking out,
He
you know?
does. Yeah.
Yeah. No
That's
longer.
funny.
He got a haircut.
He doesn't like that Whoville crack, huh?
He didn't. No.
That's
I know.
funny.
Who am I? Rude. Anyway. Well, I like it very much.
Mhm.
Well, it is already our Wednesday episode.
Right?
So, of course, we'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain for case updates to update all kinds of stuff going on.
Mhm.
But before then, we have a very interesting episode for you today.
Yes, we do.
So, Kristi, you're going to kick us off with a true crime update.
Yes. So this is Atatiana Jefferson. And Atatiana Jefferson was murdered by a police officer. And the trial, this was in 2019. And the trial for this, it's two officers actually that are involved here. The trial has just finally begun. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation around this because this is just one of those situations that really makes me want to punch
Hmm.
cops. You know, not all
FOS
cops,
list. FOS
obviously.
list.
Don't at me with that, but this was so terrible. So, Tatiana was hanging out with her nephew at her house. They were in her bedroom playing video games. It was like 2:30 in the morning, so she was being the cool aunt, hanging out, watching video, playing video games. Well, earlier in the evening, they made hamburgers, and the nephew had been doing the cooking, and he had burned the hamburgers. And so
Mhm.
the house smelled like the burned meat. He was 9 at the time. His name is Zion. And so they opened up the front door and the back door of the house to air it out.
Mhm.
Then they get busy with their video games and don't really think about that the doors are open. And a neighbor notices that the front door is open. And so they call and ask for a welfare check because they're like, it's kind of weird. The door's open at 2:30 in the morning. Can you go make sure that everybody's okay in that house, right?
Mhm.
I got to say, I used to think that was a good idea. I now do not.
I know.
So they're, playing their video games, and she hears some noises outside and sees a flashlight in her backyard.
Ooh.
So she grabs her weapon, right? That's the big thing in this country. Have a gun, defend yourself, protect your house and property. We've all
Right.
heard it. So she walks into her bathroom, and there is a man standing there in the window of the
Oh
bathroom.
my gosh.
And apparently, the man yells, "Put your hands up, show me your hands." According to the body cam, because his body camera was running. You couldn't even see that she was holding a gun.
Mhm.
Well, he yells, "Put your hands up, put your hands up," and then immediately shoots a Tatiana and kills her instantly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just a person in their own home.
Yes. Completely unaware.
Oh.
The police did not announce their presence. They did not say they were police. All she knows is that there's somebody hanging
Why,
around in her
why
backyard,
didn't they come to the front door
right?
in the very
Well,
first place?
apparently they had decided that this was a burglary. And so they were sneaking around to try to catch the burglars, except that they didn't know what it
They
was
had
at all.
no
It just had
proof
they
of
were
any
just
of
was
that.
stolen.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this happened right in front of her sweet little nephew, who is now 11,
Yeah.
and he has had to testify in court
Oh.
against these officers. It's just absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
There was no justification in any way. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't even point her gun at the police. She didn't even have a chance. This officer killed her
Mhm.
before, um,
Before she could even try to
before she
defend
could even
herself.
try to
Yeah.
defend herself. Yeah.
Even though
So
she should have never had to defend herself in the first place, but
no,
oh, that is horrifying.
it is, isn't it?
Mhm.
The the mayor has come out and said that this was unjustified and unacceptable. Of course, the police are calling this a terrible accident in which no one was at fault. Are you kidding me?
No. No.
Yeah, no,
That'll be
absolutely not.
interesting to see what the trial brings.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, it will be very interesting to see what the trial brings and what they decide to do. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's video of the whole thing,
Yeah.
and it, it it's pretty clear that he just shot her for absolutely no
Mhm.
reason at all. She had a degree in biology and worked in a pharmaceutical equipment sales building or office,
Mhm.
and she was known as Tay. Her family called her Tay. She obviously loved her nephew and to hang out with him and do fun things with him, which is exactly what she was doing the night that the
Mhm.
police killed her for no reason. She is black. The officer who shot and killed her is white. Now, we don't know if the police officer knew her race based
Right.
on the body cam footage. Probably not. But we don't know. But what we do know is yet again, police trigger happy bullshit going down that took this woman's life.
Mhm.
So
Oh, man.
that's going on now, and we will continue to update on this and let you know what happens with this case. So, Aaron Dean, who is the officer who shot her, um, excuse me, has pled not guilty, but of
Mhm.
course, he's going to trial
Yeah.
on this. His attorney says that in the window he sees a silhouette. He doesn't know if it's a male or a female, and he doesn't know the racial makeup of the silhouette. He sees it. He sees the green laser and the gun come up on him, which the body cam footage does not show that.
Mhm.
He takes a half step back, gives a command, and fires his weapon. So the command is put your hands up, and then boom. Is
Mhm.
that how this is supposed to go?
Also,
No.
again, a homeowner in their home has every right to have a weapon.
Right?
This reminds me a lot of what happened in Idaho Falls last summer with a
Yes.
homeowner who
Yeah.
had a gun in his hand in his own backyard, and
After the
which,
police had said there is someone on the run with a weapon in
mhm,
your neighborhood,
yeah. So
when
he
he
walked
shot
into
and
his
killed her.
backyard with a gun, and an officer shot and killed him.
Yes.
Yep.
Somehow this whole idea of you're supposed to be able to defend your home and property doesn't apply if the person coming into your property or your home is a police officer,
Mhm.
even if they don't identify themselves as a police officer, so you don't know who this is, right?
Right.
It's just gross. It's just, again, here we are with poorly trained officers making
See, and I
terrible
think that's
choices.
it. I think that's so much of it is
Yeah,
poorly trained.
yeah,
Well, I mean, after Uvalde, that makes the
yeah.
biggest argument ever for the fact there's
Right.
another case playing out right now in another state. I'm not sure which state, with two young police officers, fairly newly on the job, that were
Mhm,
roommates, and one of them pulled a really stupid prank. His attorney called it,
mhm.
with a gun that resulted in his roommate, a fellow police officer, being shot and killed.
Oh my god.
Very poor training,
Yes, very poor
very
training.
poor firearms training.
Well,
Yep.
the prosecutor in this case says, "This is not a circumstance where they're staring at the barrel of a gun and he had to defend himself against that person or to protect his partner. The
No.
evidence will support he did not see the gun in her hand. This is not a justification. This is not a self-defense case. This is murder."
Hmm. Ah,
Yeah.
well, I hope her family gets justice,
Right. I hope so too,
and I hope that
because
poor little Zion can get through this.
he's struggled with PTSD. He's had a really hard time,
I can only
which
imagine.
can you imagine how terrifying that must have been?
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on this. Hopefully there is
Hmm.
some justice in this situation because cops have got to stop thinking that they can just shoot anybody at any time and it's
Hmm.
justified because it
Yep.
isn't. And with that, I'm going to kick this over to our main case.
Yes. So our main case is a case some of you may be familiar with. There have been some movies, documentaries, some books. Believe it or not, I wasn't. Until recently, a Facebook friend posted something about a doctor that they had seen when they were in college that did some medical harm to them,
Mhm,
and eventually went to prison for murdering their wife. And I
mm,
was intrigued. Why was I intrigued? I'll be honest. It's because it was BYU. And I,
mm,
wait a minute, this is
mm,
another Mormon man that murdered his wife?
mhm,
I must know more.
mm,
Uh, and it has a few Daybell-esque tendencies to it, and that's
mm,
one of the
okay,
reasons I wanted to report on it because, Daybell's.
yeah,
As with Daybell's, the fact that he is a Mormon is certainly not the headline. The
mhm,
fact that he's a fraudster and a murderer is, but
mhm,
there are some things about his affiliation with the church that are very troubling.
mhm,
Uh, it's an interesting case, so let's dig in.
okay,
This guy was quite the fraudster. In fact, the prosecutor likened his life to that of the movie Catch Me If You Can
oh,
because of
wow,
the level of lies and fraud he was able to accomplish. So I'm
mhm,
actually going to just lay out the timeline of his life and his crimes, and then we can talk a little more about it.
okay,
In 1973, he joined the military at 17 after lying about his age.
mm,
In 1975, the military put him on disability leave when he was deemed to be a latent schizophrenic.
oh, wow,
His family and a judge later questioned whether that diagnosis was real or not, but
mhm,
it entitled him to VA and Social Security benefits for basically the rest of his life.
right,
He was getting a few $1,000s a month, apparently.
wow,
In 1977, he was arrested in California for forging checks. He told his friends that he saw an article about forging checks and thought that he could do it better. He felt like the people that were doing it, the only reason they were getting caught is because they were dumb, and that he could probably do it better and get away with it. Well, he didn't get away with it. The things that he bought with his bad checks were a year's supply of cherry chocolates, 60 pairs of socks, 3 pairs of shoes, and a whole bunch of other frivolous shit.
a year's worth of cherry chocolates? He
I don't
must
know
have
why.
really loved cherry chocolate.
I guess. So he was charged and he was sentenced to 6 months in jail for forgery, theft, and fraud. In the meantime, he was dating a really sweet young girl named Michele Somers. Michelle was your quintessential beautiful blonde young lady.
Mhm.
She was LDS. She was the homecoming queen. She was a cheerleader, and then she was Miss Concord. She was a model, and she was drop dead gorgeous. And he had to have her. And her parents were not feeling it. But
Mhm.
you know how it be. The heart
Right.
wants what the heart wants. And they eloped and got married. Right
Mhm.
after they eloped, he went ahead and went to prison for that 6 month term. So, can you imagine being her parents? Oh,
Right.
the red
Knowing that
flags
she's
and
married this
bells
guy,
and whistles.
immediately headed
Yeah.
to prison. Yeah, that's no
Mhm.
good.
In the early 1980s, he decided he wanted to go to medical school,
Mm.
but he didn't want to be bothered with having to get a bachelor's degree first. So he falsified transcripts and inflated grades and lied on applications and was accepted into two different medical schools.
Oh my God.
And then later on used those same falsified documents to get into BYU Law School.
Oh wow.
So in 1984, he was licensed as an osteopathic surgeon in California.
Surgeon?
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Yeah. In 1987, he also got a license to practice as an osteopathic physician and surgeon in Utah, and they moved to Utah.
Mm.
In 1990, he was taken to court over Medicaid fraud and was banned from having any Medicare or Medicaid patients for 12 years.
Oh wow.
Mhm. Also in 1990, he graduated from BYU Law School. So now he's a doctor and a lawyer, all based on a foundation of falsified documents.
Oh.
In 1999, he's terminated from his job at the BYU Health Center, where apparently he was the director for a time.
Oh dear.
Why? Well, it didn't really come out until later, but he was accused of rape and other sexual assaults against female students,
Mm.
uh, professional misconduct complaints, and also widespread misdiagnosis. Apparently, everyone had mono. Just everyone had mono. It didn't matter what you came in with, it was for sure mono.
Oof.
Who knows how much medical harm he did to the students there? And frankly, who knows
Right.
how many of them he sexually assaulted because this was BYU.
Right.
Where a lot
It
of them.
would never have gotten reported anyway.
Yep. Or if they did, there was no accountability.
Right.
There was no legal accountability for his time at BYU.
No.
Really sucks because then he went on to practice medicine other places where he should not have been.
Mhm.
In 2000, Governor Mike Leavitt appointed him to be the director of the American Fork Training School, later renamed the Utah State Developmental Center.
Oh
You
boy.
know, a place where they were caring for deeply disabled people.
Oh no.
I can't
So
imagine. Can't even imagine.
unlimited supply of victims for him.
Hmm. Probably, we don't know much about that.
Well,
But
again, it would never have been reported.
no. And do we trust this dude? No, we don't. In August of 2000, police are called to their home after he threatens to kill his wife and himself with a knife after she caught him looking at pornography. Remember that looking at porn in the Mormon church is a huge no no.
It's pretty right. It's
And
right up there with murder
oh, yeah,
as
it's
far
really,
as
really, really bad. Yeah. According to his kids, this was something that anytime he didn't get his way, he'd threaten to kill himself. That was really normal with him to
mm,
have big episodes where he was threatening to kill himself because, somebody was telling the truth about him in some way.
mhm, mm.
In 2004, they adopt five more children. They already had four.
Whoa.
Uh, four of them from Ukraine, One adoption was terminated for whatever reason, so it made them a family of 8.
Mm.
In 2005, he
Mm.
had an affair with a woman named Anna Osborne Walthall. She told her psychiatrist that she was dating a serial killer
Oh my God.
because she said that he told her that he'd killed his brother in a bathtub and tried to kill his mother when he was little.
Oh my God.
She said he also offered to kill her husband and described writing an anonymous article about mercy killing in which a patient was euthanized with painkillers but was never held accountable.
Mm.
In November of 2005, he met a woman named Gypsy Willis online. I think she was a nurse, and began a relationship with her.
Mm-hmm.
In February of 2007, Michelle believes that he is having an affair, and he'd had multiple affairs in their marriage. Their marriage was a mess.
Sure.
Yep. And the money issues were really rampant. He was always doing some big grandiose thing. They were living very high on the hog.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a constant chaotic mess of robbing Peter to pay Paul,
Mm.
and living much larger than they probably should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the kind of life he had. So she finally accuses him of having an affair
Mm-hmm.
and confronts him repeatedly in the first part of 2007. Well, in March of 2007, so just a month after she accuses him of having an affair, he decides that his beautiful 50-year-old wife needs to have a facelift and basically bullies and gaslights her into having a facelift,
Oh no.
which,
How abusive is that?
mhm, and his daughters were really not feeling it. One of the things they said is about the time he turned 50, he started getting really obsessed with losing weight and exercising, and he was going tanning, and he was suddenly all about his appearance, which was just
Mm-hmm.
weird.
Mm-hmm.
So then, she decides that he decides she has to have a facelift.
Mm.
She had never had plastic surgery, mentioned plastic surgery, ever wanted plastic surgery, and
Sure.
suddenly she's having plastic surgery. And it's not a let's plan for this and do it down a road. It's a we're doing this right now.
Oh.
He found someone who was a brand new plastic surgeon in Utah and convinced him that she needed to have this surgery immediately.
Oh.
So on April 3rd, she had plastic surgery. And her daughter came over and she looked terrible, was in a lot of pain, and discovered that the doctor, we know now after interviews in court, that he insisted on these things because remember, he's a doctor. So he gave a list to the plastic surgeon of medications that he wanted her to have,
Oh my God.
including Valium, Ambien, Phenergan, Percocet, and Lortab.
Holy shit. All at the same time?
Yeah.
And
He
this
says he never meant
whole
for them to be taken at the same time, but he did want her to have all of them. The husband did, and this doctor wrote him a prescription for them.
what the hell?
So the doctor the daughter testified that she looked terrible when she came out of surgery. She was in a ton of pain. And when they got her home from the hospital, her dad told her to leave. He said, I'll take care of her medicines tonight. And when she got back to their house the next day, Michelle was, she said, completely sedated and out of it.
Mm.
And so she confronted her father about how much medication have you given her? She was a med school student at the time.
Oh, like a real one.
Hmm. And he said, oh, well, she threw up and then I had to give her some more. And she got really
Oh.
concerned about the medication.
Mhm.
So she said, you know what? I'm going to be in charge of her medication moving forward. And her mom was wearing eye patches because part of this, it was a full facelift. So her
Mhm.
eyes were done. So she couldn't even see shit. She had eye patches on.
Ugh.
And she actually asked her daughter to hand her each pill so she could feel it with her fingers so that she would know what she was getting because
Mhm.
she wasn't trusting him.
Oh boy.
And the next few days, she seemed to be doing a little bit better. But of course, this is her daughter taking a break from med school to take care of her because she's not trusting her dad. And
Mm.
when it was time for her to go back to school, her mother said, and cried and told her, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your dad.
Oh man.
So she goes back to school with a pretty heavy heart and really worried about what in the
Yeah.
hell is going on. About a week after surgery, Martin goes and picks their youngest up from school, Ada.
Mhm.
Picks Ada up from school. They get back at the house, and he tells her, go upstairs and check on your mother.
Oh
So
man.
she does, and she finds Mom floating in the bathtub.
Oh.
So he calls 911 and he's screaming on the phone at dispatch.
Mhm.
And he's screaming at them, but she can't get the information from him. And he hangs up. So the dispatcher calls back and he yells at her that I'm a physician. I have initiated CPR and hangs up again before she can even get the address.
Oh
They
my
finally get him to pick up the phone and get the address, and he gives them the wrong address.
God. Wow.
Then she gets a message from her dad, the daughter, the same daughter, gets a message from her dad that she needs to call her mother immediately. And she was like, what the hell? So she calls her mother, and it's Martin who picks up the phone and
Mhm.
says, your mom's in the tub. She's not breathing. I've called an ambulance, and then hangs up.
Oh my God.
So she starts driving to the airport, and she's just sure of it that he killed her.
Mhm.
He killed her. She was trying to get to the house to count those meds and see how many were in them. In the
Mhm.
meantime, Michelle is taken to the hospital where she dies.
Mm.
Um, one of the doctors at the hospital testified that, or maybe it was one of the EMTs, testified that Martin said to him, I will give you $10,000 if you do not stop chest compressions. What?
What?
It's all manipulation
Yeah.
of whatever sort. So, of course, she dies. Well, in the meantime, one of the sons comes over and his fiance, and Martin tells the fiance it's just making him too sad to see Michelle's medications sitting there on the counter, and he wants her to go flush them all down the toilet.
Oh my hell.
So she does
Oh.
because she's just there helping out.
Oh,
So
poor
by the time
man.
the daughter gets there, the meds are gone.
Mm.
Well, the medical examiner rules the manner of death as natural. Apparently, the autopsy showed that she had the beginnings of cardiovascular disease, and so they decided that perhaps the surgery or the medication may have been too hard on her system, and that's what killed her.
Mhm.
And her daughters are outraged, and they know that something is super, super wrong here.
Sure.
Now, we know he has a mistress, right?
Mhm.
Well, we know that mom's been accusing him of having an affair. Well, this is where this really gets a little daybelly, all of it.
Mm.
He insists on burying her after 3 days. The
Oh my
funeral
God.
happens really, really fast. He speaks at her funeral and mentions her one time in his talk. It all
Mm.
feels real chatty.
Yeah, it does. Yikes.
And then, almost immediately, brings this woman in.
Mm.
Also, she was healthy. She had a bit of high blood pressure and had a little bit of a high cholesterol at 50.
Well, I mean, they would have checked her before she had this major facial surgery to make sure
Right.
that she was.
Well, maybe. He manipulated that and pushed that through.
Well, that's true.
So, one thing that, the daughter had,
Hmm.
was that about a month before this surgery, when mom was telling her that she felt like he was acting weird and maybe there was something up, while he was asleep one day, she printed his phone records off of his phone
Ooh,
and
smart.
had noticed that he was calling the same person really a lot, whose name was Gypsy.
Hmm.
So they already had an idea of who this Gypsy Jillian Willis was.
Hmm.
So Gypsy came to the funeral. Now, Martin had already forbidden a good deal of Michelle's family from attending. He hardly let anyone come to the funeral.
Wow.
But their daughter Rachel had volunteered to care for the younger children. He had a plan. Or she was willing.
Hmm.
Well, of course, he didn't want that. He told Rachel that they needed to go to the temple and pray about who was supposed to be the nanny. So they
Oh
were
boy.
sitting outside of the Mount Timpanogos temple,
Hmm.
and very coincidentally, guess who walked past?
Gypsy.
Hmm. Who he acted like he'd never met before in his life. And he stopped her and had a conversation with this nice young woman
Mm.
and moved her right on in the house as the girl's new nanny.
Oh my God.
Hmm.
This guy has no shame.
Yes. So they lived in Pleasant Grove, Utah.
Okay.
So the Rachel and Alexis are older, and they are real concerned about why the new nanny doesn't cook, clean, or take care of the kids.
Oh,
And
that's a little questionable, isn't it?
yeah, so mom died in April. Gypsy moves in May. In June, he kicks these older girls out.
Mm.
And then, sometime in that early time, he also changes his will to leave $1 to each of his children, and everything else goes to Miss Gypsy.
Oh my God.
On July 20th, they buy a marriage license, but from it looks like they never actually marry.
Mm.
Also, in July 2007, they return one of the adopted daughters from Ukraine to Ukraine.
Oh no.
She's supposed to go visit her biological sister for the summer. Only he never makes arrangements for her to come back.
Jeez, that's terrible.
And they steal her identity. So once she's out of the country, Gypsy assumes her identity in order to avoid a $60,000 tax bill that she has and some other financial issues. So her, original name and social security number basically fall off the grid, and now she's using this girl's name and social security number instead.
God.
So in September, her sister, Michelle's sister Linda, writes a letter to the governor, who was John Huntsman at the time,
Oh. Hmm.
and the attorney general's office, asking them to launch an investigation into her sister's death because a lot of things just aren't adding up.
Hmm.
In 2009, so now it's 2 years later and then
Hmm.
some, finally, Martin and Gypsy are indicted on 9 counts of identity theft and other charges that have to do with stealing Giselle's identity. One of the other sisters finally did fly to Ukraine and find her living
Oh.
in horrific conditions in the tiniest of apartments that had one bed, that her daughter, her daughter's husband, her 2 children, and Giselle were all sleeping in.
Oh my God.
and I believe brought her back to the US and, took care of her after that. But, that's what he left her to. Yeah. So anyway, finally in 2009, they are both charged in the fraud, the identity theft fraud.
Mhm.
And so Gypsy is sentenced to 21 months in federal prison, but she has to begin her sentence a month earlier than scheduled because prosecutors undercover a plan for her to flee to Mexico.
Of course.
In December 2009, she's also charged with other fraud and charges and sentenced to 3 years probation. And because of that, she is willing to testify against Martin, who has also been sentenced to 4 years in prison because
That's
of the
it's
identity theft. Just the
wow.
identity theft.
Yeah.
On January 16th, 2010, their only son, Damien, kills himself.
Oh, God.
In October 2010, they finally do a real investigation into Michelle's death and find all of those drugs and go ahead and change her cause of death to include drug toxicity
Mhm.
and also acknowledge that she could not have administered those medications to herself,
Wow.
which opens the door finally for prosecutors to take a peek. In March 2011, Gypsy is released from federal prison and comes back to Utah. And in 2012, Martin is released from prison and comes back to Utah. They
Mm.
both come right back to the same house. And in 2012, the Attorney General's office finally, on August 24th, 2012, they finally charged Martin with murder.
Oof, too little, too late.
In 2013, they finally find him guilty. He's sentenced to 15 years on the murder and 15 years on obstruction
Wow.
and to be served concurrently. Right after he's sentenced, he tries to kill himself in prison, but he's unsuccessful. That's in 2013. In 2017, he is successful and kills himself.
Wow.
In the meantime, one of the daughters adopts all of the younger children. She has, I
Mhm.
think, 3 kids of her own and adopts the youngest 3 as well.
Mhm.
And changes her last name away from his and to her mother's maiden name.
Good.
And all of the kids are still just trying to recover from
Sure.
what he put them through.
God, that's horrific.
At the time that he was arrested, he was a Sunday school teacher. There's a lot of talk that he was a former bishop, though I'm not entirely sure when that was.
Well, I bet he was. If he was a doctor at BYU, he had to be
Hmm.
in good standing with the current temple recommend, or he couldn't have that job.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
So not even living his own religion at all.
Yep.
God, that's
Yep.
horrifying.
When the daughter who was in med school, and I'm not using their names for a reason, these women deserve to recover and
Yeah, they sure do.
recover from this horrific situation they've been in.
Yeah.
When she tried to fight him on the whole gypsy situation, he told her that he has plenty of contacts and he will get her kicked out of medical school. I mean, this is the same kind of sociopathic shit that had been pulling his whole life and getting away with.
Right?
This guy did
Psychopath.
whatever he
Wow.
wanted. Yeah.
He did, and he got away with it for a really long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's horrifying. And those poor kids that were adopted into that mess.
Yep. Hiding under the guise of being this wonderful. They probably adopted those kids from LDS Social Services.
Oh, I'm sure they did. That was a big thing for a while with
Hmm.
kids from Romania.
You bet. And being wealthy and white and in good standing with the church in Utah,
Yep.
that has been a ticket to do whatever you wanted.
Yep.
And in this case, a real bad one because
Yeah.
this guy was the worst of the worst.
Holy cow.
Also, directly after mom died, he sexually assaulted one of the daughters and did face
Mm.
charges and was convicted for that as well.
This guy is horrific.
How sad that he never stood charges for the things that he did to the students at BYU.
Yeah.
Could have saved
Good.
his wife's life.
Yeah. Could have. Yeah. If that had ever gone anywhere, it would have prevented a lot of this.
Yep.
Wow. That
Yep.
what an asshole. I'm speechless. I don't even know
I
what to
know.
say.
I told you that this case was going to blow your socks clean off. Now
Yeah,
you know
that's
why.
unbelievable. Wow.
Really, really terrible and just unbelievable.
Well, just the trail of victims he's left in his wake is just
Hmm.
unfathomable. Sort of,
Hmm.
but really not.
Yep.
I mean, we do see things like this all the time. Men get away with all kinds of shit
Hmm.
for long periods of time.
So there was a movie called The Good Father that aired on Lifetime
Mm.
that is based on this situation. There was also a 2020 episode called The Perfect Nanny that aired in 2019
Oh boy.
about this case. There have been a few books written. There's been a lot of, well, I would say there's been a lot, except for that I've never heard of this before.
No, and that surprises me considering that we're in Idaho. And
Hmm.
but there was probably a lot of shushing of it too.
I'm guessing that's true. Yep. Yep. So there you have it.
Wow.
Pretty
Thanks for that.
wild. You're welcome. I just hope for McNeill's family's sake that
Mm,
they have been able to move on and find some ways to put their lives together and recover. It sounds like they are trying very hard and sticking together and taking good care of each other. So, all the love and props to them. And also,
definitely.
because if it wasn't for the daughters and the sister, this case would have just gone away.
Yeah,
They
would have.
fought really, really hard to get it opened back up and to get a real diagnosis or a real cause of death on the death certificate. And had they not, he'd just still be doing the same shit.
It would. It's true.
Yep.
Wow.
Awful.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going to turn the mic over to you for our last segment, which is an MMIW.
Yes. So we have covered many missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls cases on this show in the last couple of years. But something really interesting is going on in Canada,
Mm.
where they say, this is in Winnipeg, Manitoba, the officials there believe that they have in custody an alleged serial killer they believe has killed at least 4 Indigenous women.
Wow.
His name is Jeremy Anthony Michael Skibick. He's 35, lives
Hmm.
in Winnipeg, and he has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder.
Hmm.
So, uh,
Wow.
the investigation started on May 16th of this year in regards to the murder of 24-year-old Rebecca Contoy of the Crane River First Nation when her remains were discovered. He
Wow.
was arrested on May 18th in regards to that death and charged with first-degree murder.
Hmm.
But during their investigation of him for her murder, for Rebecca's murder, they have now established at least 3 more victims between March and May, all before her death. Morgan Beatrice Harris, who's 39, they think that he killed her around May 1st of this year.
Hmm.
Mercedes Myron, 26, I think he killed her around May 4th.
Mm.
Both of those women are members of the Long Plain First Nation. And the fourth victim has actually not been identified yet. But she is believed to be Indigenous and that she was killed around the 15th of March.
Hmm.
So the investigation is not over. This is just what they know now. And the bodies of those 3 victims have actually not even been recovered yet. They don't know where they are,
Oh,
but they have
wow.
reason to believe that he did commit them
Hmm.
using DNA. So this is interesting because it is a question that we've had all along
Mhm.
with so many missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Are there active serial killers in
Yeah.
here in the U.S. And also in Canada around the
Mhm.
reservations, because there are so many unsolved missing or murdered women and girls.
Mhm.
So this is just the beginning, but I think that this is, of course, it's sad, and then, but in a way, it's good for the families of these women
Mhm.
because at least they are starting to get a clue of what happened to them,
Yeah.
and this may solve the losses of other women as well. So we're
Easily.
we're
Easily
getting,
could. Yeah.
yeah. There's not a ton of information out yet, and that's why this is a segment and not a full episode.
Mhm.
There will be full episodes coming. I'm absolutely sure as we learn
Yeah.
more and
Mhm.
as more is released, we will cover this heavily because that is a this population of people is very dear to us, and we
Yeah.
want to help educate and get the word out about
Yeah.
this huge problem. So,
Absolutely. Well,
we don't get arrests and actual killers in these cases very often. So
no.
this is big news.
Well, yeah, and good on the CMP for doing the work.
Right?
Thank God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most
Good.
definitely.
And bad, but good. I'm glad that there's at least an arrest and that the
Yeah,
ball is rolling.
get him
Yeah.
off the street before he hurts somebody
Yes.
else.
Yeah. Well, this is our Wednesday case
Yes, it
Wednesday
is.
episode. We'll be back tonight at 7 on
Mhm,
our live stream for case updates. You can find that on YouTube or on our Facebook page,
mhm.
which is just the True Crime Squad per normal.
Yep.
And there's all kinds of stuff going on, rest assured, there's always more crime.
Yeah, that never stops, does it?
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment. You are more than welcome to go check us out on Patreon, and it's also the True Crime Squad. But we put out 2 new episodes a month that are just for our patrons and a few other perks over there as well. So,
Mhm.
and we always appreciate the support of our patrons. You guys help us keep the lights on, and we appreciate that a lot. So,
Absolutely.
thanks so much for being here. This has been yet another production of the True Crime Squad. Take care.
Bye, everybody.